Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fully Engaged. How we doing, Briosha?
Doing pretty good.
This is our second interview of the night for those that are here live in studio. We've had an awesome first interview, but this next couple we're bringing up, they have an incredible story, and honestly, they have some similarities to our story. And so when we heard what they were doing, we're like, oh man, I would love to talk. I think there's going to be some commonalities here that I'm really excited to get into and talk about.
Yeah.
Let's first say to those of you that may be listening for the first time, I'm Connor DeLynn. This is
I'm Briosha.
And we just got engaged a month ago. And the whole purpose of this show, it's called Fully Engaged. We want to live an intentional life. We want to have an intentional life, and we know that the most important, probably part of that successful and happy life is our relationship. And so we want to do it intentional. We've taken on the challenge to interview 100 couples before we get married. And we do it in kind of this fun format with a live in-studio audience. And we also know that for those who haven't heard our story, we tell it in episodes 1 through 3. But we have things that we have to work through, and we're working through together as a team. If you want to give them a little bit.
We're not working through anything.
Yes.
It's all rainbows and butterflies over here.
Exactly. Tell them about what they'd see in those first few episodes.
Yeah, so if you watch the first 3 episodes are our story. We met in a really, really cool way. We actually believe my son, who passed away a few years ago, we believe that he's the one who brought us together. So we met on an ayahuasca trip in Colombia and got to know each other and fell in love that way. When we met, I didn't even believe in marriage. And so it's crazy that we're now doing a show called Fully Engaged, where we interview other married couples and couples to figure out what makes them engaged with each other and what makes their relationship work. So.
Yeah, when I met Bree and I heard her story, I was like, wait, you are filled with so much light and so happy and have so much goodness about you, and that's what you're dealing with right now. That's what you're going through. I had a hard time recognizing that. And our couple that's about to come on, that's when the two of you met. And here I get emotional as I'm just introducing you. We're raw here in this show. Our goal is to have fun and to feel. But Weston lost his first wife during the childbirth process of their first child. And obviously, the magnitude of that statement just alone can sit. And the two of you met. So Kierazleah, his now wife, two met about 4 months after that process.
Wow,
and
I didn't even know it was that fast after.
Yes, and so going from, the hardest of lows and deepest lows, and then at the same time, new life, like we've talked about on the show.
Being able to fall in love again and all of that. Connor has been so incredible for me in my healing journey to be able to have support. For me, what felt like the very first time. So, Kierazleah, I just want to say props to you for coming into a family that was in devastating grief and being that person for Weston. That's really incredible.
Yeah, kind of cool. She had one little at home, and he had one little at home. So it's kind of interesting that his stories are. I'm just going to get you both up on stage. They basically have turned that now and have taken that story to, not be the story. The story is the afterwards and the finding joy after struggle and transformation and all of that process and all the highs and lows and the pains that all come with it. He's got a new book that's coming out that we'll talk about here in a little bit, and is on the speaking circuit, sharing his story and helping people grow with his own coaching program in a really cool way that we'll talk about. So please give me a huge, warm welcome to Weston and Kierazleah Brandon. Come on up. All right, let's roll. That was a fully engaged
Hunter.
first, guys. I have yet to cry while giving an intro.
Wow.
Aww.
Yeah, so when you're giving the intro and you're already tearing up, I guess I cried in your intros, but...
I lost count on the crying.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Kierazleah, what do you think? Like, he signed up to be the speaker now. He's the one writing the books, doing stuff, and now you're like, why do I have to be up here?
She just got dragged on today.
Are you all right doing
much.
that?
I told him that I didn't want to be front and center.
She told me, she says, if you ever bring me on stage in front of a camera, we're going to have problems.
Oh.
So pray for us.
And so you
after
bring
we
her.
talk about how good a relationship is.
Well, thank you for coming on our stage.
Yes. No, it is funny with the dynamic of this show because we interview a lot of people that one person might be an influencer or one person might have this, and then we're like, no, we want to see the couple. We want to see the dynamic because there might be one person that is more in the spotlight, like you just said, right? But both of you are going through it together. And specifically for you, like I feel like there are some things that we're going to be able to relate to in what we've chosen, right? And what you step into in relationships and know, hey, this isn't pretty. It isn't necessarily clean. There is some mess here, but you're choosing the mess, right? So thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing. Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start. So typically on the show, we'll start with kind of like, how did the two of you meet? But as we said in the introduction, met just 4 months after, one of the major parts to your story. And so let's start there first. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your first marriage, getting pregnant, and the accident?
Yeah. So at the time this happened, I was actually living in Texas. Now we're in Utah now. I'm born and raised in Utah. And so was my first wife. And I was in sales professions, and I did door-to-door sales for a summer right after we got married. But my first wife she was a pharmacy technician at a hospital, so she had a 7-on, 7-off schedule. And being away from this person I just fallen in love with for a week at a time, or like 9 days at a time, I was in Colorado doing it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that yet. So I pivoted and went to do higher ticket software sales. I sold mechanical engineering software, and that's what took me to Texas. They had an office there. We were just like, let's go plan our own routes. Let's go do something, just get away and be us kind of a thing. And so I was pretty successful there, and I was making a decent amount of money, and we were comfortable for all intents and purposes. And we decided, I was like, all right, it's time to start a family. And so it took a couple of tries, but then one stuck, and we were able to get pregnant, and that was my son, Vance.
And how long were you guys married for at this point?
So this would have been 2018 when she got pregnant. We got married in 2017. So it was maybe about 18 months or so.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, my first wife and I got married 6 weeks after we met. I know we were talking, there's other episodes that it was fast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole
That's
other
even
story.
faster than the other couple we just had on.
And we knew we were going to get married like really fast within a week also. So I don't know what it is. I just like lasso.
He knows.
Something like that. But anyway, so we're in Texas, and she gets pregnant, and then, at the 20-week ultrasound, we find out we're having a boy.
And were you guys just so excited to be married and your life and having a baby together? Like, what were those emotions like?
Yeah, so excited. Like, everything was going right for the most
Right.
part, I mean, marriage wasn't perfect. Neither of us had been married previously, so you're, kind of figuring out some relationships there, but nothing huge, Like, I was happy. We were very happy. And then at 25 weeks gestation, she had what they called an incompetent cervix, which kind of sounded judgmental to me at the time.
That's a weird
I had no idea
adjective.
what that meant. I was like, incompetent, excuse you, I think it works fine. But what that is, for people that don't know, is basically she dilated to like a 9 or a 10, but didn't go into labor. No contractions or anything,
Oh.
just door opens.
At 25 weeks?
At 25 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Way, way, way too early, right? So she goes up to the hospital, she goes on bed rest, and they're like, you're just going to lay here until you have the baby. That could be tomorrow, that could be full term, no idea. Like fully bed rest, bedpan, the whole gear. She can't get up. And so I get permission from my work to work from home because I'm a lot closer to that hospital. And that was a really emotional time because she's stuck in bed, and I'm having to work and go up in the evening to just see my wife every once in a while. And she was able to hold him in for another week. And while she was on bed rest, they gave her some steroids through an IV.
So she was holding her baby in for a week while she was dilated at a 10?
Yeah, it would fluctuate between like an 8 and a 10.
Wow.
She was up there pretty high. And who knows, her mother might call me and correct me on that when she hears this. It might be but she was way too far. But so she held him in for a week, and they gave her some steroids to kick his lungs into gear, make it develop faster. I have no idea what that is, but that's what I was told. And it worked, because then a week later, I get a call as I'm working from home, and she says, hey, the baby's coming. They're not going to wait for you, so you need to get up here really fast. And so I found out how fast my old truck could go, and I got up to the hospital, and I walked into the OR right as they were and it was an emergency C-section that they ended up having to do because he was coming out breech. So I'll just get in there just as they're opening her up, and she's high as a kite on whatever happy gas they've got her on, and she's saying hilarious things, and it was quite an experience. And which we laughed about for a while after that. It was super fun. But then I got to see my son get removed, and he's 1 pound 13 ounces, and he's like small enough I could hold him in my hand. I'd never seen a baby that looked like that before. So honestly, it took me off guard when I saw that. I didn't know what I expected to see, but the only babies I had seen were full term and fat and swollen face and full term babies.
Yeah.
And then my son comes out as this little tiny wrinkly old man looking thing.
Like a little alien.
Like a little, he did. And we have little pictures of him, when he was that little. And I remember, I didn't feel like a dad when he came out, right? And I held a lot of, not resentment, but I didn't like the fact that when he came out, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, overwhelmingly in love with this child because, and I found out after talking to lots of other new dads that was a common thing, because my wife had experiences with this child, feeling him, growing him and everything, and I had only just been hearing the reports, through the grapevine kind of a thing. So I'm just trusting that she's telling the truth, that there is a baby in there. And she's getting bigger, so it looks like it. So, and the sonogram shows a baby, so it must be a thing. But I quickly found out that I began to love this baby very, very quickly. That guy came quick.
Oh,
And this is actually a picture of my mother holding him. This is...
He does look like a little alien.
Right? he's so cute, though. And that's my first wife, Lauren.
Is this Lauren?
Yep, that's my first wife, Lauren, holding him. And that was that moment when she's high as a kite in this picture. And I remember she was like, there was another nurse there, and she's stroking this nurse's arm, and she's like, your skin is so soft. And she looks in her eyes, she's like, your eyes, oh my, they're so pretty. Like this, she's like looking at this angel. I mean, this nurse are like, what is going on?
I want some of that stuff.
But that's kind of how she was. She was just super kind to everybody. And I think there's a couple other pictures in there if you go. Yeah, so this is a picture. Wow. This is me. You can see his hand here, fully wrapped around, only went around half my finger. Right?
Oh my gosh. And he's 26 weeks at this point?
What?
He's 26-ish weeks?
Yeah, this, I don't know how many days after he was born this picture, but it was very, very quick.
Right.
This was within a couple days.
Right, and he's 1 pound.
Yeah, and so you can kind of see on my face, I'm like, what is even happening? And the miracle about this, another miracle about this is if you can see in the picture, he only has a CPAP mask on his nose. He doesn't have to have a breathing tube down his throat.
Wow.
And I mentioned he had to have steroids to kick his lungs in the air. That was the goal, that he wouldn't have to have a breathing tube. So that actually isn't in his mouth. It's just right over top of his nose. And
oops. Hunter was getting fancy with this.
he
was. I was super impressed with him there for a minute.
There we go. Yeah, look how tiny he is. So he's just got this CPAP mask on his nose, and he didn't have any major health complications. So the only thing that we were told we were waiting for is he has to be able to eat as much food as he needs to on his own without he has a little feeding tube that's going kind of into his nose there.
And how is Lauren feeling at this time after just delivering her baby at 26 weeks?
She was over the moon in love with this baby. Like, so much so, and she was super, super excited and just all over him.
Was she excited the whole pregnancy?
Yeah, she was. This was her life's dream, was to become a mother. She didn't have like professional goals. She played a lot of softball. That was kind of her hobby. She played in college, but her I want to be a mother was the biggest thing that she wanted. So yeah, this happened, and then
yeah. So then what happened? Tell us.
Yeah, it was all. I wouldn't want to say it was sunshine and rainbows because I was the breadwinner, and I'm like thinking, how the heck are we going to pay for all this? But I was like, that'll work itself out, right? There were some programs with Texas he actually qualified for Medicaid just based off of his birth weight. So like, there's going to be some help that we can get with that. But anytime, as far as I know, anytime you go to the hospital, you have a baby, they put these leg massagers on your leg. And Kierazleah had the same thing when she had our other kids. I think Didn't you have them on one? Okay, whatever. I need to pay more attention. But I was told in the hospital, like, this is fairly common to do this, and they put these things on her leg to just massage her legs. And they said the reason for that is just to help blood clots just not
Yes.
form in your legs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. They're like, it's less than 1% chance that it'll happen.
It's probably because she had a C-section.
Yeah, that's probably why. Because after a surgery, you're more prone to blood clots just from the trauma of the surgery, right? And so they kind of said that, and I was like, all right, cool, and just kind of let that be. But 2 weeks later,
You guys are at home at this point?
yeah, we were at home. So she got discharged from the hospital, within a day or two. And so she just had stitched up and just had to take it easy, no heavy lifting kind of a thing, And so 2 weeks later, I'm still working from home because my son's still in the NICU and he's going to be there for who knows how much longer, right? And so I'm working from home, and my wife calls me into the living room. She's sitting on the couch, and she's having trouble like catching her breath. She's feeling like almost hyperventilating, she thought she was having a panic attack, and which I believed her because she was on anxiety medications just as a thing. Even before she was pregnant, she struggled with that. But then with the birth, the C-section, like everything going on, like obviously that's super stressful. I'm super stressed. I'm surprised I'm not having a panic attack, right? And so she's like, I just need to have you help me calm down, and hold me for a minute so I can chill out. But unfortunately, she never caught her breath back. It just got worse and worse over the seconds and minutes that passed. And eventually she asphyxiated in my arms as I was holding her. And what happened was she got a pulmonary embolism, which for anybody that doesn't know, it's a blood clot that usually starts in the deep leg veins. That's why they put the things on. That wasn't enough. She got one, and they've even found the scar tissue when they did the medical examination. It traveled up her legs and went through her heart and got stuck in her lungs. And that's what a pulmonary embolism is. It goes right through your heart and gets stuck in your lungs because the blood vessels get really small in your
That's why
lungs.
she was having a hard time breathing?
Yep. So then basically it got stuck in her lungs and it stopped the blood from flowing through her lungs. So she's taking as deep a breath as possible but not absorbing any oxygen, just slowly dwindling. So I got to watch that happen right in front of me.
In your arms.
In my arms. And I was on 911 at the time it was happening because she felt something was wrong, and there's a whole bunch of other things that your body does that I got to witness, unfortunately, when you start to suffocate like that. A lot of horrific things. I've never seen a movie where somebody gets choked out or something that it actually looks like what it really looks like. That was some images I had to process, But I was on the phone 911, and I ended up having to do CPR on her, and luckily EMTs were really close. They came, within a couple of minutes, and they took over, they put her on a stretcher, got her over, and they said, don't follow us because we're going to run red lights and sirens, don't give us another thing to respond to while we're going to the hospital. And so we went to the hospital, and 30 minutes later, they're still doing CPR on her. And kind of at that moment, I knew, I was like, this really isn't good. That's way too long to do CPR, right? And I had a moment in there that completely changed my life inside the waiting room at the ICU. And I can't talk about any of my story or anything what I talk about without talking about God and my relationship with Him.
Yeah.
And this was a point, this is like a turning point. This is like, if I need God to talk to me at any point in my life, this is it, right? And I had served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, spent 2 years teaching people about all this, about what happens after we die, like why we're here and all of these things. And I believed it, and I had experiences that I knew it was true. But this called it all into question. And I was like, I need to know right the freak now if this is legit. And if you're actually listening to me, if you actually care. And I didn't have any scriptures with me or anything, but God had always talked to me throughout my life before that, either through music or through reading in His Word. And I had my phone with me, and I didn't feel like playing music in this situation, so I just opened up an app that I had on my phone that has the Bible and the Book of Mormon and these other things on there. And I kind of said that, and I probably didn't say it in the nicest way, but I was like, I need to hear from you right now. So I just closed my eyes and started tapping on my phone and see where it showed up.
Wow.
And
I've done this.
and it opened up and I didn't choose any particular book. I just hit scriptures. I was like, all right, whatever one, here we go. And it opened up in the Book of Mormon, which is a book of scripture that we use in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in addition to the Bible. And it opened up to the book of Alma. And when I opened my eyes, it was Alma chapter 40, which is all about resurrection and the afterlife. And the very first verse that I look at when I open my eyes is verse 1. And how it starts is, I might have to paraphrase a little bit here, but it says, "My son, I perceive that thy mind is worried concerning the resurrection of the dead." That's the first thing that I see. And like the chills that I just got over me, like that
I
was
have chills
this.
everywhere.
This was only like what I just felt there was just a tiny piece of what I felt in that moment. That I was like, all of that kind of nonverbal communication was, she's not gonna make it. Yes, it's true. Yes, you can lean on it. Yes, I'm still here. You know, and I was like, holy crap. And so I kept reading, and every verse was like the next question that would come into my mind, the next verse answered, and then the next question would come into my mind, the next verse answered. And that happened for like half the book, and then I sat there, and this was just like he was in the room, you know.
He was.
And then that kind of subsided, and I'm like, well, this still sucks, and I'm still here,
Yeah.
you know. And then I had to, you know, go in and into the ICU and see her, and then 12 hours later, I was signing papers to facilitate organ donation, you know, and everything after that. So then I had to live in the NICU kind of by myself, because I don't say I did this by myself because I had so much family there present. My first wife's family was there. My parents flew down. There was people from our church congregation that were helping us. There's so many people around me helping me, giving me space to do what I needed to do. But unfortunately, with any kind of grief, I'm sure you experience this too, like people will be there, but then not because they don't want to be there anymore, but they have to go back to their own lives. They have to retreat a little bit because they have families too. Like they'll be their support, but they can't be there every day. Right?
For me, I noticed when I lost my son, I had so much support, but especially at the beginning, right, where it was almost overwhelming. And
Yeah.
then 6 months down the line, like people are still there, but it's like,
It's different.
yeah.
Yeah. And so my parents have to go back to Utah. My dad has a job. You know, they have lives with there, so they have to fly back. And my in-laws have stuff going on. As much as they're hurting losing their daughter, they had things they had to do too.
And your
So,
life has completely changed.
Yeah, it's completely
Everyone
new.
else's lives is the same, and yours has been completely flipped.
Yeah. So it was a weird time where I'm at home, and my in-laws were staying with me pretty much this whole time. You know, they would go out for a while, and they had to go. They had an RV at the time, and their life plan at the moment was like nomading around. So they had other things that were going. We had to go get this done and go get this done. So they'd be gone for a little bit and then come back, and gone for a little bit and come back. But there were still moments that even though they were physically present, I felt completely alone, right? And I'm sure they did too. And then there were times I'd go up to the hospital, into the NICU, just to sit there with my son and hold him, you know, because again, I kind of felt guilty for what I felt was a lack of fatherly love for this little baby at the time. So I was like, I need to intentionally build this relationship with my kid. So I went and tried to spend more time with him. But it also was a little bit difficult because going there and seeing him was bringing back a lot of the pain.
And they're in
Right.
the same hospitals.
Yeah, it was, well, my
Oh.
wife, they took her to a different hospital for her
Okay.
thing. But still,
It's
there
still
was,
a
Sure,
hospital.
sure.
I
Yeah,
had
it's-
spent
I
so
wondered,
much time
yeah.
with her there. And so it was a weird time where it was like, I wanted to be connected with my son and I wanted to be connected with her, but it was so heavy that I wanted to step away. I wanted to, you know, float. So I drowned myself in distractions. I did a lot of retail therapy. I bought a bunch of knives. I spent so much money trying to, you know, just feel something other than this heavy weight. And then eventually I realized that if I was gonna give my son the life that he deserved, biologically I am not wired to be a nurturing mother. And that's not anything against me, it's just not who I'm made to be. And his grandmothers, both my mother and my first wife's mom, you know, they could do that a little bit better than I could to a certain extent, but also, you know, they have jobs and they have other things. So I was like, if I'm going to give him the best opportunity, I need to at least keep myself open to another relationship, even though I really don't want to,
Wow.
you know. But I at least knew that pretty quickly, and I also got a pretty strong feeling from what I feel like was from my first wife there, that she was either aware of the plan, like if there was somebody else planned for it, or she had found who it was, or maybe she had found some good option. I don't know. It just kind of felt like she was involved in whatever that was going to be.
She was looking for a partner for you and then also a mother to her son.
I'm sure.
And she wasn't only giving you permission, but it sounded
was,
like she was saying,
pushing
I'm
me.
helping. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't know exactly what that looked like. I was like, okay, I at least need to keep myself open for that. So when Kierazleah comes into this picture, I moved back to Utah because like all of our support, all my family's there. So I moved back in with my parents into my basement bedroom that I lived in when I graduated high school, like, start over kind of thing, but now with a baby. And so there's this dating app called Mutual, which a lot of LDS people use. And in there, I was like, I'm not going to hide any that you're smiling because you.
I'm so excited to get you into this
Yeah,
conversation here, Kierazleah.
I
Here
feel like
we
I'm
go.
doing there's so much backstory. I have to do a lot of the talking, but she'll come in a minute. But I was like, I have to, like, I'm not going to hide any of this. Like, this is this is the situation, right? So I put pictures of me and I put pictures of Vance, even from in the hospital. And as much as the character limit would allow, I put the whole,
Oh
where
my
we were
gosh,
at.
this story's on a dating app.
This story's on a dating app.
Here's my child, currently 30 weeks, and this is what
Yeah, I
I'm
was
going
like,
through.
I don't know why
That's-
I'm doing this, but I feel like I need to, so come save us, ? Or something. Like, I didn't say that, but that's kind of what it felt like I was doing. But then, so I was like, well, I have to swipe if there's going to be any matches. So I like go through, I'm like, no. And I get all the way to the end, and I said no to everybody. And that was kind of a moment for me. I was like, wait a minute. I'm saying no because they're not my wife. I'm looking for somebody specific that I'm not going to find. So luckily for me, they're like, hey, there's this. I looked in there and there's a premium version you can pay for. So you don't have to swipe. It'll just tell you who swipes on you. And I was like, take my money. There we go. And I'm just going to turn notifications off. I'm not going to look at this for a few days. And so that's what I did.
Wow.
I paid the money. I was like, thank the Lord there's that option. And so I didn't look at it for a minute. And then I don't know if my mother brought it up or what happened. But I was like, I need to check this. I feel like I need to check it. So I was like, we'll see who freaking crazy women are wanting a piece of this. And so I opened that up, and I'm like, there are 5 crazy women that want a piece of this. This is, wow, okay. So I initiated a conversation with each of them. I'm like, hey, who are you? What do you do? And I don't remember any of their names except hers. But these women that I started having a conversation with blew my mind just in the texting conversations we have, how emotionally mature they came across and kind of some of the background there. There was one of them that was going to school to be a therapist. And so, like, initially I was like, that's probably good for me. But then I was like, but then I got talking to her, and her picture, at the time, she doesn't have them now, but she had braces, and for some reason I was like, whoa, that's cute. I don't know. I'm not trying to give off any, like, pedophile vibes or anything like that, but for some reason about that, I was like, wow, she's really freaking pretty. So we got talking, and in arranging some first dates with some of these people, the first one that ends up going through is with Kierazleah. And after we have our first date, I had an experience where going on these dates, I was rather upset with God at the moment, and because I was like, if you are going to take my person, you had darn well better have something to fit in that hole, So I was still talking to him because I remember at some point in my life, somebody told me, even if you're upset with God, you need to let him know because he can handle it. So that's the only thing I was going on. I'm like, I'm just yelling at him, but I'm praying to him. Like, I know you can take this, so I'm going to freaking let you have it. And that was a very therapeutic experience for me doing that alone. But before I went on the date with Kierazleah, I prayed and I says, I don't know what stuff you've got her doing on the other side, but I'm going to call in some PTO, and she needs to come with me on this because I don't trust myself to be in the headspace to make a good decision. Or if someone's just reciprocating love, I'm just going to be like, love me, and like follow whoever gives that. So I need you to let her come with me so she can like
So you
give
asked
me a yes or a no.
You asked God for Lauren to come with you on your
on our
first date.
first date,
That
yeah.
is so cute.
So, and after our first date's over, we had a funny, the story. I asked her, I was like, hey.
Here, let's time out here.
Yeah.
Hold up. I
We need
want
to
this
Kierazleah
story.
in this one.
Kierazleah, you're scrolling.
I know. I
Yeah, hold on. We
wanted to
gotta
ask
get back to
this.
here. Yeah, so you're
Rewind.
scrolling, you got profile coming up, and you see this story.
I'll be honest, I don't remember swiping on him.
Not what I was expecting. I was expecting
don't
you
remember.
to send him
She doesn't remember it at all.
best message ever.
I was going to school full time and working full time. I was really done with dating. I felt like a lot of people on that dating app really just wanted to hook up. And so I was just so done with it. And most of the time I just like mindlessly swiped, you know?
But you're mindlessly swiping yes. See,
Apparently.
most people mindlessly swipe. It's no.
It's kind of like I don't
like
know. I'd
it.
look through, I'd glance at their bio, whatever, and their pictures and stuff, decent enough, you know, whatever.
You got it decent enough.
I feel so objectified.
No, but this is actually a big deal because maybe this doesn't happen if she reads. If she's reading this story, she's like,
Okay,
you know.
I was definitely open to dating someone who had kids or had been married.
That's
and
because some
everything,
of
so
your
it's like,
background, right?
yeah. But where was I going with that? Well, I had deleted the app because I was just done with dating.
Yeah.
I was going to school, working and stuff. I was just gonna concentrate on that. And then I kind of felt, I guess, the prompting to download the app again.
Aw.
And I told myself, I'm giving it 24 hours. Whatever guy initiates a conversation, asks me
up.
out, whatever first.
You only had it for 24 hours? Stop.
I downloaded it after I got off of work that day, and he messaged me I don't know, it was later that night.
It was 2 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
because I had to get up with my son woke up and needed to feed him. So I'm sitting there putting him back to bed, and I'm like, hey, well, now I'm not tired. I'm like, well, now's as good a time as any to check to see if anybody wants a piece of this pie.
I was one of those crazy women. So I woke up to that message, and he was the only one that had messaged me that I had swiped or anything, on the app in those hours. And so that just kind of...
Oh my gosh.
So then you read
Because it was
his.
mutual too, yeah.
So then you read his bio, and what are you feeling?
I don't know. I guess to me, I'm just oh, he's got a little baby. I've always wanted to be a mom, and I guess that's not the traditional way of becoming a mom, getting a
But it didn't
stepson,
scare
but-
you. It almost drew you in.
Yeah, it didn't scare me. I had been married before and divorced, and so I don't know. I guess that just opened up. I don't think that had I been married and gone through a divorce myself, I don't think that I would have been open
Right.
to that type of relationship.
But you were looking for
So-
something real, like what you said, and you could probably sense that in him.
And I knew that I don't know, I felt like because of what he had been through and that he had a kid already, and that it was so fresh, I felt like maybe he wasn't there to just mess around. You know, I felt like he was serious and that I wasn't going to be wasting time. Neither of us were. So if it was going to work out, then it was going to work out, and I didn't have to sit there and wonder if it was going to work out.
I love that actually, right? Because, a 2 a.m. response on a dating app is a booty call. That's what 2 a.m. means, right? But you're literally up at 2 a.m. because you have this newborn that you're taking care of, right? And you're totally right. That was his reality. He wasn't going to go out and hit the bars and talk to people or go to big events and find some people. It wasn't his time of life, right? You were serious, and you were too. I think we connected in that same way of I think when you find the right person, it's all the games and all the rules that might be there just fly right out the window because you both are ready. And so I think it's really cool to point out you appreciated that in him, even if that might have meant that it came with a lot, right? And we know that.
He can relate to that.
Yeah. Let's hear about the first date. So you invite, let's set the scene. You invite your first wife who had just passed to come on a date with you to help you find the mother of that child.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. So we met up at Texas Roadhouse, and I mentioned retail therapy. I had always wanted a motorcycle, so I just went and bought a motorcycle. I was
A
I'm showing
motorcycle
up
and knives.
in my cowboy boots and my motorcycle, and if you don't like it, then tough luck. This is what
I liked it.
is
and
so
she
not,
liked it.
it's very much not hard to profile you, We got this
I'm
guy
like,
figured
this
out.
is me. It's all written right here. And what she didn't tell you was that she wanted to date a tall guy, and she had kept getting short guys.
Oh, yeah.
Not that being a short guy is anything bad, but that's just what she wanted.
I'm short, so I
she's-
kept getting guys like shorter than me, and I'm like, well, I mean,
She
personality's better, but
always
like,
wanted to be able to hug a man and put her head on his chest.
One can only dream.
So I was the answer to that prayer, because I'm 6'2" and I show up on cowboy boots, which is making me another inch and a half taller anyways. But I had no idea, of course, this. So then she said, well, describe that when you first saw me, like your thoughts.
I don't know. I just remember walking up, and it was clear that it was you, because you were like, you had your helmet and everything, so I knew you were on your bike. Anyway, and I just remember walking up, and I checked you out, and I was like, oh, nice. He's wearing cowboy boots. And then you stood up, and I was like, and he's tall.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
first impression, I was like, nice.
So I was off on the right foot, and I didn't even know it. But we went to Texas Roadhouse. We had dinner there, and then we had plans to go do hatchet throwing at some place that was close by. And then after we got done with that, we didn't have any other plans. We were like, we're hitting it off really well. What can we keep doing? There's a Cold Stone right down the road. I was like, why don't you hop on the bike with me? Because I'm like, maybe she'll hug me at this point. Nope. She doesn't touch me. On the back of a motorcycle,
That's
normally
dangerous.
they're going to be like, her
I've
knees
good
would at
abs.
least touch me, like on my hips or something like that. No, she's like, I don't know how this guy's going to feel with this situation. So she's like, spread, like, don't touch him kind of thing the whole time. And she even did that on her second day, which was a motorcycle ride up the canyon and down.
What?
She didn't touch me the
Wow.
entire time.
To be fair, I didn't know where he was at with like touching and stuff. He had just lost his wife like
Oh.
recently, so I was like, I don't know how he is with touch. Like now that
That's
I
fair.
look back at it, I'm like, okay, he's asked me to ride on his motorcycle, like duh, you know. But like in the moment, I'm like, I don't know, like where do I?
Yeah.
I don't know how much he's okay with.
So was that really in your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Like, this is someone who just lost her spouse. Did that come up in the conversation? How quick?
Not in that conversation. It was, I don't remember when we talked about
It was when I think it was like probably later that day actually.
Yeah,
When
it's
we
like
got
it's the elephant
back.
in the room.
Oh yeah, because then we got back. I think we started like and ate something, and then
Yeah.
I think I called it out. I was like, "So are you sore? Because you like didn't touch me the whole time. That's gotta be
Well-
a workout."
No, it was later that night. Like after our second date, we kind of went back to his house, his parents' house, and we had been talking. He kind of just like, all right, well, so he basically told me, I want to be in a relationship with you. Are you in or what? You know. And anyway, it was kind of after that, and then it was later when we were texting. He was like, because I was on the opposite end of the couch too during that conversation, and he's like, he said something along the lines of like, next time are you gonna sit next to me on the couch or something like
Are
that?
you still
And
gonna be like over there awkward?
so then that's when that kind of came up and
Oh.
But
talk
this,
about touch.
this first date, so we go to Cold Stone on the motorcycle, we eat, and I'm all up in my head. I completely forgot to pay for the ice cream, so I just left her standing there at the register and walked away. And then she's like, "Hey, what are you?" I was like, "Oh, sorry," and I had to come back and pay for the ice cream. And then we get back to the motorcycle. We go back to where her car is, and we're talking for a minute, and I'm like, "I had tons of fun. Do you want to go on another date?" And then, what did you say?
I said, yeah, do you?
I was like, well, duh. That's why I asked you. So I just kind of gave her this look. I'm like, yeah? Yeah, I do. And so she goes and so we hug, and she gets back in the car, and she drives away. And as I'm watching her drive away, I said out loud, actually, I think I did say it out loud, and I was like, well, babe, what do you think? And the moment I said that, I got hit super hard. Like,
Stop.
yes, like I got an approval there. I don't believe that God will tell you you have to marry this person. I don't think that's what I got. And I think telling somebody else, like, God told me we need to get married is probably a rather manipulative thing to do. But what I got was basically like, yes, I approve. This is, if it's reciprocated, feel good about going forward with it, So I was like, all right, cool. So I go back to my house, and my mom asked me, like, so how do you say her name? And I'm like, ooh. I can't remember how to pronounce it. And then she's like, oh, well, whatever, but how did it go? And I was like, well, if it keeps going the direction that today did, then I'm going to marry her. And my mom's like, she just shook her head because that's kind of how it went with my first wife too. She's like, how do you always know? I was like, well, I don't know we're getting married. I'm just saying if it keeps going the way today did, then I'm down for that. And so we arranged our second date, and then she had a similar feeling pretty quick too.
Aww.
Yeah, it was, I mean, we had the day after our first date, he had LASIK, so otherwise we were going to have our second date that day. But so then it was the following day, we had our second date, and from there on, we spent like every single day together. So first date was on a Thursday. That following Sunday, I was over at his house, and we stayed up all night talking. And the following morning, I had work, so I left. And it was like as I was at a stoplight leaving his house, and it just all of a sudden hit me. It was out of nowhere, and it just all of a sudden hit me, and I was like, I'm gonna marry him. And of course, I didn't know where he was at. You know, we hadn't openly talked about where it was going, other than just, you know,
That was a fun conversation.
you know. And so I was kind of scared there, and I was like, well, I can't even tell him how I'm feeling. It's literally only been a few days, you know, and he just lost his wife. So
Meanwhile, I'm having the same thoughts. I'm like, if I tell her this, she's gonna freaking run.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
props to you guys for being open to love even after loss. And then you said that you had a divorce. So, you know, that takes a lot of heart and a lot of balls.
Yeah. Let's dive into some of the lessons learned from this, right? So one, it's crazy to, hear that story and walk through it all, but there's a lot of dynamics at play, right? Like there's a new child, there's grieving the loss, there's stepping into a new family. What stood out as like maybe the biggest learning lessons that you took away from that initial time of kind of when you started to join his team, we'll say when you became fully engaged with each other, right? Like when the two of you were there, what did this process teach you about life, about grief, about love?
Let you go first. Because I want to hear this too.
I don't know. I guess I need to collect my thoughts here, man.
It's all right. It's a big question. Take a breath.
It is a big
Yeah.
question. I don't know. I guess for me, it was a big thing stepping into,
Yeah.
you know, 'cause you don't have any kids biologically,
No.
right? It's a big thing to accept stepping into that role.
As a parent.
As a parent, yeah, and it was a lot for me to navigate and for us to navigate together, figuring out how, there's a lot, honestly, of our dating time and when we were first married that, you love each other, and you focus so much on each other. It took me a minute to actually fully step into that role of mom. It's like I cared for him,
For the baby?
and I loved him, yeah. But I was so focused on my relationship and marriage with him that I almost feel like I was going through the motions with Vance, is his name. And so, like, I loved him and I cared for him, but so it took me a minute to figure that part of our life.
Right, and I'm sure you're having a lot of conflicting emotions too, because it's like his mom had just passed. So then, like, where do you step in, and where is your permission
Exactly.
to
And I'm
even
still
step in
having
as that
moments
role?
where, I'll wake up from a dream and I'm crying because I miss him.
Right, and then he's
And
going
that
through
was hard.
intense grief.
Yes, I was constantly, I felt less than her, and he's never held me in a competition with her, ever, it was always me putting myself there, and that's something that I really, for the first probably couple years of our marriage, that I had to continue to work through. Because I was constantly just thinking, oh, he misses her, he wishes that she were here instead of me, he probably thinks that she would be a better mom than me, just all of these thoughts. And so that was a big thing that was a really hard thing for me for the first while, for me to work through, I guess.
For sure.
So that was really hard, but I feel like it ultimately has brought us closer going through that. I've had to voice a lot of my feelings with him and stuff. And through all of that, he would ask me how I was doing
Right,
with it,
because his feelings are totally valid, right? His grief and everything he's working through, but then so are yours. Like he's over here mourning his last wife and missing her, and he's allowed to miss her, but then still love you and choose you at the same moment.
Yeah, so it was a lot to work through, but I don't know, I feel like we're obviously in a good place now, and I don't have that struggle anymore. I feel like I've stepped into my own place, and we've had 2 more kids of our own.
Yeah, how did that change when you had, so the 2 of you now have kids, there's 3 of you, right? So there's Vance and then the other two kids. How did that change for you feeling in that role? Did it change your relationship with the other kids at all?
Honestly, I feel like having our daughter, so she's the middle, I feel like women naturally have the nurturing. We have nurturing in us, so like it's
Even
not that I
before
was
we
a
have
bad
babies.
mom. Yeah. So it's not that I was a bad mom, but I feel like as soon as I had my daughter, it was like it kick-started more in me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something kind of woke up inside you a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah, and
I
so
noticed
it
that.
was, I don't know, I just felt like I was able to step more into that mother role, even for Vance. And so, I mean, I've always looked at him as my son. He's mine. I didn't give birth to him, but he's mine. And I'm the only mom that he's known. We talk about Lauren. He asks questions about her. We have a picture of her in our home. We're very open. He knows her. But I'm mommy, But I feel like as soon as I had our daughter, I was just able to step into that mother role better.
Wow.
I was able to just be the better mom that all my kids need.
Aw.
And I should say, from my perspective, she's a freaking rock star mom even before we were married. That was extremely attractive to me, how naturally she took care of a baby when I...
Advance.
What?
Advance.
Yeah, Vance. And it gave me also a little bit more space to try to get back to what I felt like my divine role was supposed to be as a provider, right? Like, I'm trying to provide my child everything that he's going to need. And that was kind of honestly my approach to dating, was trying to be a provider to a thing that he would need. I wasn't really thinking of myself at the time, though very quickly I realized, like, oh, I need this too, But to see how she took care of my son, I never got the vibes from her and how she treated my son or how she took care of him that she felt any kind of disconnected from him. Like, she dove in there and was in the trenches and took care of him. Honestly, she took way more physical care of my son than I did, and she stayed at she rented a basement apartment from a family, and she basically, she didn't spend a whole lot of time there because, we'd stay up so much talking at night, and she's basically taking care of the baby while we're up talking, and I'm just there watching it. It's kind of how that all went. So
I ended up quitting my job before we even got married so I could be home with Vance.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Instead of working.
And so she went all in.
And were you
on
guys
this.
having conversations at this time about you stepping in as his mom?
Yeah, at that
Yeah,
time
that
we
was,
talked about marriage.
we had talked about marriage
That
within the first week
conversation,
after our
that's a-
first date.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's go to that same question for you then, Weston, and tell me how it's catapulted you into what you're doing now, right? Because you've taken this and you have now decided not to just stay quiet, to actually tell your story and to talk about it and use it as a way to help people, which obviously we have huge respect for. So tell us, what did you learn through that and how has it changed your course?
If I had to boil it down to one statement, it'd be clarity comes through committed movement. And that might sound a little bit cryptic, but I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, right? Like, in that moment, holding my son at the hospital or even at home after he was discharged from the hospital, like, the biggest question is, what do I do now? And that's a big question that everybody asks in some point in their life, whether they lose a spouse or not. They graduate high school and that's a question, like, what do I do now? But what I learned through the process was that I wouldn't get the clarity that I wanted until I figured out kind of where the trumpet was calling from, some way off in the distance. I didn't know exactly where it was, but I could get like, it's generally this way, right? And I learned that if I just put my head down and moved in whatever general direction that felt as fast as I could, then everything came into place that needed to be, you know. And she was the first huge piece of that. And that's where I was like, okay, I guess this system works. Like, figure out and just freaking go. And then it comes together, you know. And that's what I talk about now. Is the biggest lesson that I learned was what that committed movement even looks like. And if you don't mind, I'll share a little bit more. Kind of when I wrote the book, and as I was writing the book about what I learned and how, you know, I climbed out of this. I should also say that the only reason I think I was able to do that was because so many people supported me and gave me this space, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, to be able to do so, right? I don't think there's any self-made men out there, really. I'm certainly not one. And what I came up with in the book as I was writing everything, I'm like, all these things that I'm super passionate about teaching these guys that are coming into these careers. I was in sales at the time. I actually completely changed careers. I didn't do sales after that. My mind was busted. I couldn't handle pressure sales quotas anymore. So I decided, I was like, the trumpet that's kind of calling me is being a provider, and I need security. And my father was in the trades. I talked to him about it. So I pivoted. I went back to school. I went to trade school, and I got into HVAC and refrigeration. So now I fix stuff, right? And now kind of bringing all those worlds together, these guys would come in to, both when I was in sales before this happened, but then also in working with the blue collar stuff, these guys would come in, you know, not knowing anything about it. And I had become pretty good at it pretty fast. So they would have guys ride with me, and I'd get to train them. And I quickly learned, and there were multiple guys that I've been able to train, but all of them to some degree, I realized like there's sometimes some character development that has to happen before the actual practical knowledge can really stick. So a lot of our conversations initially were like, you know, in that field, there's a lot of electrical stuff we have to do. So we're talking about electrical theory and all these kinds of things and how things work. But then the conversation soon shifted. As I was seeing how they worked, I could start to like almost read between the lines about how their childhood was.
Wow.
And about how their relationships with people were. And I started asking questions. I'm like, if you don't mind, I'm going to make some bold assumptions about your upbringing, and you tell me if I'm right or not. And I would say this, and I'd say this, and they're like, how the freak do you know that? I'm like, I don't know, it's just, I can read it off of you. And so then as some of these conversations started happening, and I'm like, all these things that I started feeling really passionate about teaching these guys, if I could put it into a system, what would that be? So honestly, I used, at this time, I had kind of got the calling and then the feeling that I needed to share this, but I had no idea what it was necessarily. And I signed up for a speaker academy thing and was going in there, and they're like, hey, you're going to get up in 3 minutes and give us what your keynote is, like an overview. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue. So this guy's sitting there helping me. He's like, here, let's just throw it into ChatGPT real quick. Like, what do you know? I'm like, so I'm like word vomiting, like what I'm passionate about talking about. She's like, let's see if we can come up with an acronym or something like that, and, you know, and come up with these other ways. And I'm like, as he hands me the computer, I'm like, that's not quite it, that's not quite it, that's not quite it. And then I finally moved some things around, and then I saw it, and I hit it. I'm like, there it is. Like, that encompasses everything. And the word was drive. And I broke that down into discover, resolve, invest, visualize, and elevate. And all of those layers build off of each other, right? But there are some core layers that are close. And in my book, I talk about how we can, instead of pursuing success, we attract it, right? We really only have to go halfway, because if we're doing it right, the right things will come to us. And that was the whole like visualize part of that, right? But I was like, really what you have to do first is you have to discover some things about yourself. Discover, Simon Sinek's famous for doing the, like, find your why, right? And that's a pretty common thing.
Discover your passions.
Yeah,
What do you
discover
even
all
want?
these things. And I never really liked, for some reason, the question, find your why. I'm like, my why is I'm a dad, like, duh, you know. But as I dug deeper into it, I was like, really, when I'm trying to find my why, I'm trying to answer the question, what hails you? And when I say, like, there's a trumpet off there calling you somewhere, like, that's what's hailing you. You got to figure out what that is. And that can change over time, right? There's going to be one big one, obviously being a father and a provider. and a dad and a husband are like the big things, but then there's other things that I can kind of connect to that, right? And then once you discover some of those things, you're going to discover things that you don't like about yourself, right? This whole, you can tell me if you had this experience or not, but I felt like when I lost my wife, I got thrown into the engine room of my soul. And
yeah.
I was like, I can see what's in here, and I have an opportunity to either take a good look around and decide whether I like what's in here or not, or I can quickly leave and shut the door and not want to look at it, right? And I recognized I was in that piece of my soul, and I decided to take a really good look around at what was in there and decide what I was going to keep, what I was going to clean up, what was I going to throw away.
Wow.
And I knew, I was like, I'm not going to be in here forever in this kind of deep feelings in the side of myself, so I need to make a map on how to get back here.
Wow.
And so as
I was not
we
thinking
started
that,
going
I'll
through
tell
this
you.
dating stuff, you know,
He's a little more of an engineer than you are.
Yeah. I remember just shutting that door.
so I started thinking about like, okay, what kind of a thought process am I using? Where am I spiritually? Where am I emotionally when I feel like I have access to see this part of myself? And how can I get back here again? And that's where resolve comes from. There's two different kind of sides to resolve. One is just resolve to go, right? Resolve to head that way as fast as you can and not stop, like buffalo running through a storm, right? Instead of being a cattle that run away from storms. That's an easy concept to understand. It might be a little bit harder in practice to develop that. That's more mental, strength work that you have to do. But then the other side of resolve is to resolve those things that are inside of yourself that aren't in harmony with whatever you're trying to pursue, right? So you have to stay aligned with your goals. And I learned a lot of stuff about myself, that I had wounds even from my childhood, outside of, obviously the big one, I lost my wife. That was like huge, overarching, this is the big thing right in front of my face right now. But as I started to shift that over, I found so much more down inside of this.
Yeah.
The last episode you talked with Hunter about pornography addiction, right? And I struggled with the same thing. And I learned through talking to so many other men, like, there's probably the vast majority of us have had some type of issue with that, right? And I had to discover, like, where does that come from? And where do these come from? Where do these feelings come from? And I had to dive inside of myself and figure a lot of that out.
Yeah.
And then the I being invest is, I just say jump far. Like, once you figure out kind of what ails you and you're working on this stuff and you're kind of getting your mind and your heart in sync with each other.
Aligned.
And your frequency is strong and stable. Then once you get that, then it's time to invest in yourself in whatever way that looks like for you, right? So you jump and you jump far. When I changed careers, I took a student loan out. I went back to school, kind of put myself in a do or die situation, right? I have to make this work. And then to make it work, that's where the visualize comes in. Like, I had to think of, okay, my goal is to be a husband and a father, and a good one, but also to make enough money that we're comfortable and we're not stressed. Once I've made it there, how does that feel? Once I've made it there, who am I? How am I different then than I am right now? And I need to make that version of me who I am right now so that I can sustain that reality. And I don't, if I don't make that who I am now, then that's never going to happen. And I have to see that. And so I intentionally kept that in my mind as vividly as I possibly could and tried to make myself feel all the time what it'll feel like once I've made this goal, and intentionally feel gratitude for it. And then the E, elevate, I just think that's the catalyst to making everything happen as fast and as boldly as possible, because like I said, God is the biggest piece of my life that has helped me to do everything, and I believe his work and his glory is to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man and bring them back to him. And if I can make what my goal is to be in line with his goal, then we're working together, right? Then he's in line with what I'm doing, and he's totally willing to help out. If my goal is to do something that's going to hurt some of his children, probably not so much, right? But if him helping me get what I want helps him help his other kids too, then he's going to be all in on that.
Yeah.
And
No, I love that. I think so much comes from what you just said right there, and I love that when you have something like what happened to you, you have no choice but to go within, right?
Yeah.
You have no choice but to say, what am I going to do with this, and what does that look like? And I think it's cool to see, you do a show like this and you see different perspectives, you see different ways people talk about the same things, right? And so it's interesting is like you're talking right there. It's prayer, it's manifestation, it's faith, it's belief in a higher power, but wrapped in a little bit of an engineer, right? That he's like saying, I went in with my soul and I found a map and I came back with this and here's
And put it
here's
into a
the
book.
way to do it, the action plan. And
That's awesome.
And that will attract those people that think in that same way or that resonate on that same
need a map,
frequency.
yeah.
I mean, she's got a couple friends and they talk spirituality and it's like they're so woo-woo and talking about the planets and the stars or whatever it might be, but that resonates with a group, right, in the same way. And so I love anyone that's able to take their challenges, take their
Yes.
trials, take what life has dealt them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and do something with it to give back, to help other people. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate you having on the show. I'll give you the chance to do the WTF minute in a minute there. Kierazleah, is there anything you want to say kind of in wrap up or close to what he's doing now and like going from this and now sharing?
I mean, not really. It's been a wild few months.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, obviously it's been up and down for
Right.
me. It was, he came home one day and just like, all right, this is what we're doing. Life's gonna change, and he wasn't lying. He's
Yeah.
been going,
I did tell her that
And
day
now you're
that-
on stage too.
yeah.
He
That
got
was when
right
she's
here.
like, okay, but I ain't doing this.
Yes, it
I
didn't
was
take
like,
very
I'm
long.
home taking care of kids. That's my role.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Here on this show, every time we do one of these interviews, anyone that pours into us, we want to pour back into them. So we do it in a pretty cool way. We call it WTF, worth the follow, your 60 seconds, right? To be able to share in a minute what you do, how you can help people. Do it right here in this camera because we purposely do it at 60 seconds so we can put this on social media and tell them what you do, how they can find you, why it matters, whatever you want. Right there, Weston. Oh, yeah, we got to set a
Oh,
timer.
you gotta
right?
give me a go.
Here we go. Ready, go.
What I'm trying to do now for other people is to share my hell and how I found my heaven and help other people to do the same thing, to figure out what that looks like for them. The book that I wrote is called The Overhaul because that's what I felt like I had to do with my life. I had to completely overhaul everything. And it's fixing your mindset and driving success. And now it's kind of branching out into coaching too. I talk about 10x your life where it matters most. And that's what I try to share with the book. That's what I try to share with the coaching. That's what I go around and talk to people about now. I'm going to a high school, in a couple of days to share this with people that are graduating from high school. Because while the perspective is unique, the problem is very, very common. And that's what I try to help people figure out.
I love that. They can find you online. It's westonbrandon.com, right?
Yep, westonbrandon.com.
You
The
got it.
socials are just at westonbrandon speaker.
I love it. And you did that right on a minute with me giving the call to action at the end. I had to give you a sense. I'm just teasing. All right, you have a gift for them?
Yes, yes. So I created a jewelry brand called Osha Chains, and my piece that I focus on is a butterfly necklace. And the butterfly means a lot to me. It's a symbol of hope, it's a symbol of love, and it's a symbol of connection for me to my son Romeo, who passed on a few years ago. So I think it's so beautiful, Kierazleah, that you've walked into this family who has gone through so much, who has lost your ex-wife and then also your son's
Former
mother.
wife. Yep.
Yeah.
Late wife. There you
Late
go.
wife, former wife, and then your son's mother, and being able to step into that role as his now wife, partner, and then a mother to a son is incredible. Like for me, being able to be with Connor and how much he's helped me and supported me has been incredible for my journey. So just a huge thank you, honestly, for being willing to do that and being as amazing as you are. So I want to give you this butterfly necklace,
I love it.
and thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for coming
listening.
on.
Those of
Thank
you
you.
here in the room, we appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time on Full Engaged. Thank you.